I'm Cheryl. I have this, this is kind of an anytime card. The sentiment I used on here is to think of you is to smile. So you could just write a little note inside. You could write a thank you note, or just all round lift me up or lift the other person up kind of note inside. But I think it's pretty cool because it doesn't really show up as well on the video, but in person the flowers almost seem to pop off of the paper. So it's kind of a cool technique that I'm going to show you today. So for this you'll need a piece of crumb cake cardstock, 5.5 by 8.5, and it's scored and folded at 4 1/4, and that's our base. Now I've done some prep work here. We have another piece of the crumb cake cardstock, and this is 3.5 by 4 3/4, and I've already pre-stamped my flowers using my Whisper White ink, and that's a pigment ink. So when you use this, you need to stamp it and let it dry. So it's got to dry. It's not like the dye inks that suck down into the cardstock. This pigment ink kind of sits on top. So you need time to let it dry, but that's okay, because that's a wonderful time to go and clean your stamps off immediately. Because I find that the pigment ink, if you let it dry, it's going to be hard to get it off your stamps. So while you're waiting for it to dry, get up, go wash your stamps, and then go on to doing other parts of the card. And by then, perhaps it will be dry for you. Then I have a piece of Whisper White. You need a piece about 2.5 by 2.5. That's what we're going to be doing our little sentiment on for the front of the card. And I'll show you how to do this. I've already done it, and cut it out. But I'll show you really quickly how to do that. And then I have 2 pieces of Whisper White cardstock that are 3 3/4 by 5. One will go on the inside of the card, and one will be used to mat this piece. So I used the Eastern Beauty stamp set. That's where I got the sentiment, to think of you as to smile. And I also used this circle right here. It's the one that has like little teardrops all going around in a circle. So I used those 2. And then from Blooms and Wishes, this is the flower I used. And then from Botanical Blooms, I got a leaf. Now any solid type floral stamp will work for this. So if you don't have these sets, if you have a solid leaf like this, or a solid flower, the ones that you can get like a watercolor effect, those are what you want to use on this card. And then I had used a circle die, and that came from the Layering Circle Framelits die sets. This is the, let's see, 1, 2, 3. This is the 4th from the smallest, but you will know which one to use because it's the one that fits around the outside of this stamp. You see? So if you forget, just make sure that the stamp fits inside of it and you're good. Alright, so like I said, we're using Whisper White. It's a pigment ink. Then we're using the Newberry Burst ink, Emerald Envy, Crumb Cake, and Early Espresso, Tombow glue. I have a pair of scissors and my comb, and a 9-inch piece of 5/8 ribbon, and that we're going to make our bow from that. And I have my Nuvo crystal drops, and this is the gloss one, and it's dark walnut. I'll be using that for the flower centers. And we'll need dimensionals and a sponge. We need a sponge. So that's all the things we need. So let's get going on this. We'll pretend you stamped this and went and cleaned your stamps and you let this dry. And the next thing you're going to want to do for this is to stamp it with the colors. And when we stamp with the colors, let me get them out. When we stamp with the colors, we're going to offset it from the white flower. So we ink up our flower and choose a petal on there that's different from the rest. And when you do this, like I said, you want to offset it, so you have to get over top of it and look down and stamp. And there we go. Now, you see how I stamped it? Now every one of these I'm going to stamp, I'm going to offset it in the same direction, so that it looks like there's like light coming from this direction, and then there will be like a shadow around your flowers and your leaves. Okay, so we're going to do the rest of these that same way. One more here. And if you've noticed, I'm turning my stamp around. It's because when I stamped my original white ones, I turned the stamp as I'm stamping so they don't all look exactly the same. And let me clean that. Let me clean that ink up that I have on my silicone mat here. Okay, I'll probably be needing that for the, I'm going to be stamping some green off to the sides too, so I'll probably need that white again. And let's get the Emerald Envy out here, and my little leaf. Make that up real well. And again, you want your shadow to be on the same side as your flowers were. And there we go. Those are all stamped. And now I'll show you how I did this, because there is an order to doing this to get everything all centered and nice on that. So let me bring in, I have a little piece, let me get a little scrap thing here. Alright, so the first thing I did was with the Early Espresso ink. Now, if you don't have Early Espresso, you could use black just as well. I just like to coordinate my my sentiment if I have a really dark color. Okay, so I use the Early Espresso because I thought that went with the colors on my card. So, in the center of your piece of paper, you'll stamp your sentiment first. Okay, so I have that stamped. Then next, I'm going to take the circle, and I use the Berry Burst for that. Let me get that out here. Okay, and then I centered my sentiment in the circle. Okay. Oh, I forgot to tell you on the from the Eastern, let me get that in the camera. There's a little bitty kind of a star type of thing in there. I use that also to decorate this. Now you could do this now or after you die cut. I'll do it now. And I just stamped a couple of these. I put 3 because an odd number always looks nice around there. And then lastly, you will die cut this out, and then you can center that in your die cut. And if you have a magnetic platform, use that, or if you don't have one, then a bit of tape. Just use a little low tack tape to hold your die in place and cut it out. So very simple to do if you know how to do it. Okay, so next let's get our ribbon done. Okay, so I have my piece of ribbon, and you might wonder how I decide how much ribbon I'm going to need. And the way I do that is I start out and I give myself a however long of a tail I think I'm going to want, and add just a little bit more to it. So I've got you know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches of tail. Now this is a small bow, so I'm going to use I'll have 3 slots in the middle here. You always need an odd number of slots, and then I'll go in here. Okay, so I have 1, 2, and then I have my center one. That's where my ribbon is going to be tucked down into. Okay, so I've got this. Alright, so the way I estimate before I cut off on this end is I have this tail, I've got my loops for my bow, and I have this one. I want this one a little bit longer. I'll make it even a little bit longer because this one is the one that goes down and then comes up and gets tied. So you'll use a little more on this end, and that's how I know where to cut off. Okay, so let me move these up a little bit. It's kind of hard with these, with the thicker ribbon on my little comb. One of those hair pick things would be great for the thick ribbons, and I do have one somewhere around here, but I didn't get it out. Okay, and remember this side will be the side that shows on the front, so you want to get your ribbon twisted around there and you want it to come up. This is only a one-sided satin ribbon, so I want to make sure my shiny side is out on there. So that's my front of my ribbon. And I have my 2 pieces here, my little tails, and I just tie those in a knot. And pull it good and tight. And then slide it off. And there's my little bow. All set to go on my card except for trimming the tails. So I'll just set that aside for the moment. Let's get our card base in here. And I got some green on my paper. Good thing there's got 2 sides to it, huh? And you see, I had other flowers, and I realized that this one is this is no longer available. So I used a stamp set that's still available from Stampin' Up. So again, good thing there's 2 sides to the paper, huh? And we'll center that on our piece of Whisper White. Okay. Take this, and anywhere along here that you feel like you'd like to pop things up, you could pop them up rather than gluing them down flat. And make sure, yep, card's opening the right way. And we'll center that. We've got a 1/4 inch showing all the way around. And we're ready to put our little sentiment piece on. And I'll put a couple dimensionals on that one. I did want to pop this up for sure. Give them a little poke with my nail. Makes it a little easier to peel these off. Anything that makes my life easier, I'm all for it. Alright, and then we're going to put it at a little bit of an angle, a little jaunty angle, and we'll overlap our white border a bit. And I'm going to use a dimensional for my bow too. You could use a glue dot. I have glue dots, but I don't know why. I'm not real crazy about glue dots. But that's just me. I know a lot of people use them and love them. And here we go. Peel the back off of that. And I want to put my bow just above my sentiment here. And now I can trim my little tails off. Now, what did I do with those nice sharp scissors? There they are. And I don't want them very long. Let me trim this one up a little bit so they're fairly even. And just adjust that a little bit. Alright, and there we go. And we just have our inside is blank, so we just put that little piece in there, and then when the time comes you can stamp something there, or you can handwrite something nice and then glue it down. I do this a lot of times on my cards. So then they're, especially ones that could be used for multi-purposes like this. And the only thing we need now are our little Nuvo drops. This is something that I've just started using recently, and I'm just having a great old time with these. So off on the side here, I'm just gonna start that a little bit. Okay, now we want to hold your bottle. You want to hold it straight up and down, and look down from the side. You want to squeeze a little bit out. Let me see if I can get that up there. See that? See, I have a little bit squeezing out. You want to squeeze a little bit out there on the tip, and that's what you want to touch to the paper. You don't touch the tip to the paper. And then you just make your dots. Just squeeze out as little or as much as you want. I'm putting 3 of these, 3 little dots on the inside in the center of each of my flowers. So I want to keep them fairly small because my flower centers aren't that big on here. And one more flower. And if you wanted to, you could make one big one in the middle. I just want 3 little ones. And now the card is finished. So if you've liked this video, then be sure to hit that like button down below. If you want to see more of my videos, then hit subscribe. I've got a whole bunch of them out there. If there are any Stampin' Up! Products you'd like to purchase, then you can do that either through my Facebook page or my website. And as always, I'll have everything that I've used here today listed down below. So y'all take care, stay safe, and happy stamping.